The American Ginseng Summit started with conversations with two of the organizers of the 2017 West Virginia Ginseng Conference, Susan Leopold of the United Plant Savers and Allison Ormsby of UNCA, where we were commenting on the dire state of the ginseng plant. This was reinforced with conversations with Leslie Stark of the North Carolina Department of Agriculture Plant Division and Kathy Slosher, past president of the North Carolina Plant Conservation Board. And then conversations with Buck Owen from Mountain Rose took place. So from here, the sponsors were solicited. Mountain Rose, the United Plant Savers, and the North Carolina Ginseng Association are the current sponsors. Then the program was broken into three parts. Firstly, how did we get here? Second, how can humans help this plant thrive? And lastly, is an American ginseng market feasible? This is a story about a small plant that lives in special places in the forest. Ginseng is unique in many ways, including being able to tell you its age. Living under certain trees in a community, and recent studies show that you need 176 plants for ginseng to be a sustainable community. And that's at different ages of each individual plant. As a multi-year crop, ginseng provides medicine for both humans and animals. Besides living in specific areas of the forest, it takes a new plant 18 months to go from seed to seedling, which is a little bit unusual. There are some other plants that also have a long cycle from seed to seedling. But it is unique to the plant community as it changes its appearance 3 times before settling down as a 3-prong. At 3-prong, it will have berries to reproduce. But then again, it continues changing as a teenager, and as middle age comes along, it adds more prongs. So that is a very unique situation that most plants come up, they look like they are, and they look like that forever. But ginseng changes. Besides a challenging early life, this plant has fungal problems that could kill the total plant. Some are found in the soil, and some are found in the air. Thus, from my perspective, it's best grown in the forest under the right trees with the right companion plants to protect it from any funguses or other problems that may exist. Now, American ginseng has had a hard time since the white settlers discovered this plant in about the 1700s. And the start of commercial export in the 1780s. By the time 1900 came around, ginseng had suffered from overharvesting. And this overharvesting would continue to today, and is one of the reasons that CITES listed ginseng back in 1977. Many ginseng farms have come and gone since the 1900s. However, the crop has never kept up with more plants growing than those taken for export. And I challenge the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, through the data that they're collecting, can show that since CITES has been formed in 1977, billions of plants have been taken. And it's one of the reasons why when you go out into our forests and private lands, because of poaching, ginseng is becoming a rare and endangered plant. And this shouldn't have happened. Since it got listed on CITES, its plant populations should be continued at the same levels. And these stats show that that's not true, that ginseng is less and less available, that more of it as a natural resource to this country has been exploited, and we're in a position of depletion. One of the problems is that the word ginseng is confusing to many. First of all, there's two species, Panax ginseng and Panax quintifolia. So right away, you have to ask, is it Asian or American? Then you have to ask about the methods of growing, which are important because there's field cultivation under artificial shade, which didn't do real well out in Western Canada, or cultivated beds in the forest, which are sprayed in a monoculture setting. The other choices are wild simulation, which, as its name speaks for, is trying to simulate wild conditions, being under the right trees, being on the right slope, and hopefully having some companion plants. But that wild simulation can be both sprayed and organic. And then there's wild organic, which right now, in my estimation, is mostly poached. All of these aspects of ginseng needs to be known to know exactly what ginseng you have, how it's been grown, whether it's been sprayed, and whether you want to put that into your body. So this program that we're talking about right now is not speaking to the larger part of the pie, which is cultivated or sprayed farming, which has been estimated by some to be about 90% of the commercial market. We're not going to be discussing any of the benefits of that program, but we are going to be discussing the 10%, which is wild simulated organic or the wild organic that's out there. And I'm basically talking about the North Carolina state government, the North Carolina State University, the ag extension agents have been advocating for an export program, that exporting our natural resources is beneficial to the country and to the people who are participating. But if, in my estimation, we were going to be honoring CITES, we'd be having a reseeding program from almost the very beginning. And that's really not been the case. It's been considered a commercial situation where private industry would do this. Unfortunately, the private industry has tried to do this around the 1900s, and there has been some success, but it's not been ever possible that these populations have been protected since CITES was signed. We are learning now about a reseeding program that is trying to maintain some of the ginseng populations. Without having a reseeding program, the amount of ginseng plants and roots that are being taken are not allowing for the populations, in my opinion, to be stabilized or to grow. Now, there's a couple of interesting things about ginseng. One is the very unique way of looking at the price of ginseng. Many times, the total price for a pound is stated. And just for argument's sake, I'm going to take $800 a pound, which is not unusual in 2022. And I'm talking as a licensed North Carolina ginseng dealer for the last 30 years. Now, the price does start to fluctuate, which a lot of people don't realize. So it could start around $500 or $600, and it may go to $1,000. By the end of the season, it may hit that high. And we're just taking an 800 figure as a middle figure for just figuring it out. And this market has been traditional from September to around November, when the first frost occurs. Now, I will be talking very shortly about harvesting out of season, which is one of the major problems that people who are in administrative capacities are very, very hesitant to understand. But let's, for argument's sake, take the fact that 400 plants 10 years old was divided into the $800 average, which is approximately $2 a root. Now, we can argue whether it's 400 roots 10 years old or 371 roots. We could argue whether it's hit 850 instead of 800. But all of these indicate that obviously if we had a $600 market where we were buying, then we would only be talking about $1.50 a root, which is not unusual at the start of the root season, dry root season. But my contention is whatever the price or the number of roots per pound, this is very, very cheap for our rare, natural resource that is not only medicine but food. Where the price for the ginseng slave labor for that $2, that poacher must track down the roots in the forest, usually on somebody else's land. They have to watch out for dogs. They have to watch out for broken ankles, yellow jackets, rattlesnakes. And then they have to bring it home where it is clean and then dried properly before he can travel to a licensed dealer. That's a lot of work for $2 a root. And since we're talking about cleaning ginseng, many novices pick up a toothbrush to clean the dirt away. Unfortunately, if that is done, the majority of the minerals as part of the skin is lost, and many dealers will discount from the $2 to maybe only 50 cents for the roots that are clean with a toothbrush instead of hand washing and leaving some dirt on the roots. It's a hard lesson for the beginners. And no matter what the price per root is, this pricing is very, very low, especially in today's market. When somebody comes along and says they, have a half a pound or a pound of roots, and they spent all of this time, energy, and money, and you're going to give them less than $100 or $800 or whatever poundage they bring in, it's cheap labor. And the people who are benefiting the most are the country that we sell all these roots to. 96% of these roots are exported. And that also makes it very, very difficult for our existing forest farmers to compete with poached ginseng. So let's look at the problem of poaching. Here, the harvester didn't plant the crop or take care of it for the life of the plant, which is very attractive to the poacher. And we're talking about a multi-year crop. This practice of wild harvesting only works, in my opinion, when the crop has in large quantities in nature and can be replaced by nature or man, so the populations are stable or growing. Today, I would consider all multi-year crops that roots are taken for food or medicine to be unsustainable to wildcrafting. Thus, a new possibility exists. What if the leaves were taken each year from the wild stimulated land and the root is left in the ground to be a sustainable operation? This is a whole new way of looking at being part of the ginseng marketplace. And we do this with ramps. We keep the ramps in the ground and we take the leaves. There's no reason in the world we can't leave the ginseng root in the ground and take the leaves. We have to do that at a different time of the year. Obviously, you can't wait until the fall when they turn yellow. You have to take them when they are green, and that's usually June, July, maybe early August. And you're going to have to then determine whether you're going to dry them and make medicine out of them, or you're going to instantaneously, when you harvest, put it into alcohol to make a tincture. Now, there are some benefits of tincturing it in its form of being green or fresh. And there is a whole new market that has been established by mainly, totally in my case, Korean Americans. And this is a fresh market that does not rely on the dried market. The dried market is exported. The new fresh market is such that people come up from cities and they come up and they buy a few pounds of fresh ginseng, and then they go back, the South Koreans, and then they have like a gathering where the people in this little community that's purchasing this ginseng washes it and makes food out of it and shares a meal. That's a whole different market, the fresh market, from the dried market. And so there are new ginseng markets being formed, even though we're having some problems with some of the older portions of the existing export trade. It's not for lack of laws that prohibit the poaching or harvesting out of season of ginseng. It is the enforcement of these laws that are not being carried out. And this is a major problem for a lot of people, who are, especially the dealers, because these people are going out early. They're harvesting it when the plants haven't turned their berries red. They're harvesting it before there's even berries. And then they're coming to the dealers sometimes before the season and is very willing to sell their crop. And there are many, obviously, dealers who are willing to buy that crop. And you would think that that would be enforceable by the law to at least figure out who's doing the purchasing of ginseng out of season. And if the people aren't prosecuted for out of season, then the people who are going to be doing that and who are wanting to know that if they go out and they steal some ginseng, the chances are that nobody's going to come and get them. No law enforcement is going to track them down. Even if they got in front of a magistrate and court, the fines are just basically a slap in the hand, and they pay the fine, then they go out the next day and they're poaching again. The system is broken when these things are happening. And as a broken system, we need to look at some areas where we can make some changes, maybe not right away, but at least to start talking about these changes to make this market viable. In my estimation, the poundage that we're seeing is just the beginning of the fact that commercially, ginseng is going to be difficult in the near future to continue because of the lack of product that's available in the forest and in our private lands. And it, as Ross Young, our ag extension agent, said, he can't even ask people to start ginseng as a side crop, which surely is worth being a side crop for a farmer because of all the poaching. So the farmer goes ahead and puts in a crop and tends it for numerous years, and all of a sudden he goes away on a Sunday to church, and bingo, when he comes home, there's no more ginseng in his patch. This is a common story. This is not something that is not heard all the time. They keep ginseng not only in this country and in this state, but also as a medicine for all Americans. This shouldn't be a medicine just for the Chinese population. We grow it here, and Native Americans have used it here for thousands of years, and it's now time to stop the trade exporting this product. And all of the different agencies that feel that the continuation of this exporting is fine. It's okay for these people to only get $2 a root. It's okay for our natural resources and forests to be trampled by meth addicts. It's okay for people who try to work with ginseng as a crop to have their crops stolen. It's okay for all of those people who sit behind a desk and just see these statistics and numbers say, oh yeah, there's nothing wrong here. Everything's okay. We can continue to keep doing what we've been doing.
In this video, we'll explain what CITES is. CITES stands for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. It's an international agreement between governments to protect endangered plants and animals. Its aim is to ensure that the trade of certain animals and plants does not threaten their survival. The types of animals and plants covered by CITES is diverse. It includes wild animals, plants, and wildlife, as well as the products made from them, such as musical instruments, plants, dried herbs, and exotic leather goods. It's important to keep in mind that CITES is an agreement between countries and does not replace national laws made by government authorities such as USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, DEFRA in the UK, and BICON in Australia. The trade of certain animals and plants is not allowed with countries who have not signed up to the CITES agreement. Before you ship your goods internationally, it's important to check if the goods are listed on the CITES website. If you're exporting goods and need a CITES certificate, you should apply for one well in advance of shipping, even before agreeing to sell the goods. Each country has a government agency responsible for CITES, and the application should be made according to the requirements on its website. When you're importing CITES goods, ask the sender to provide a copy of the paperwork in advance so you can inform your carrier. There are usually delays due to inspections, so it's important to be prepared for this. After you've received the certificate, your carrier should be informed that goods are being transported under CITES. And that's what CITES is.
Yeah, so you just asked me to give an overview of CITES and specifically how it relates to ginseng. So I'll just do that. And we'll start there. So, I mean, generally speaking, CITES stands for the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. It's an international convention with over 184 parties, which are basically countries, but they call them parties. That was started in 1973. And, CITES was started to ensure that international trade in flora and fauna, animals and plants, is not detrimental to their survival in the wild. That's the overall charge of CITES, and that's what they try to do. And generally speaking, it's a way that they make sure that they oversee, monitor, and make sure that the legal trade is handled throughout the world in species. I thought it was interesting to learn that 36,000 out of the 36,000 species listed on CITES, 34,000 are listed under Appendix 2, which is one of the Appendix 1, 2, or 3. Appendix 2 is the one in the middle that where they do monitor, trade is allowed, it's just highly monitored. And that is Appendix 2 is what ginseng is listed under. So trade is allowed, it's monitored, and it's permitted per country based on non-detrimental findings. So yeah, I was going to read directly from Growing and Marketing Ginseng by Janine Davis and Scott Persons, because they did a very good job in describing CITES and how it relates to ginseng. So talking about the regulation through CITES, I mean, again, the trade identifies ginseng as one of the species that needed protection. And if I'm not mistaken, it was 1977. Is that correct, Robert?
Yeah.
When ginseng was listed on CITES Appendix 2. So it's been there a while. So anyway, it monitors, controls, and restricts trading, as I said, in the identified species, ginseng in this case, to prevent adverse impacts on the population and to ensure the continued existence of ginseng in its natural habitat. The United States has an obligation, as does each and every state, each and every party that is a party of the convention. Their responsibility is to monitor that and determine non-detriment. The organizations in the U.S. that are responsible for this is the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and more specifically, the two divisions of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is a Division of Scientific Authority, DSA, and also DMA, the Division of Management Authorities. And under the authority of CITES, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife will only allow the export of both cultivated roots and roots collected from the wild if the DSA and the DMA advises the export will not be detrimental to the survival of the species. All states in the United States that are legally harvesting can sell ginseng again in this coming season. So every year, the DSA reconsiders this non-detriment finding based on information from each state. So all the states, there's some states that have, each state is charged. In the United States, within the states, I believe there's 19 states, if I'm not mistaken, that are allowed to export, harvest, and sell ginseng in the United States. And each state has to do their own monitoring of that and turn it into the DMA, DSA, and the Fish and Wildlife for their non-detriment finding. So all the states have established laws and state programs, including a legal foraging season, that regulate the harvest of wild ginseng and require the certification of the roots, whether they're wild or cultivated. But generally speaking, to hunt ginseng in the wild, you will need to know your state's legal season and any other state laws, such as a license for hunting, or requirements that you only take plants old enough to bear seed, or that you immediately plant some of the seeds in the site where you dig. In each state, I will say this, Robert, the American Products Association, we put out a brochure on American Ginseng specific to each state, and it does tell you, each state, some require you to plant it in the immediate area, and others have other stipulations. And you can find those brochures also that are very helpful. And we pass those out to all the ginseng buyers and dealers throughout the state. So the information is out there. The harvesters just need to be aware of it and know where to look for it.
This graph depicts the total U.S. poundage of American ginseng exported, which shows a consistent downward trend.
Good afternoon. My name is Joy Goforth. I am the Plant Pest Administrator with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, and our program as a whole is a very large ship manned by a very small staff. Those of you in North Carolina may have had more opportunity to work with our field staff. Any ideas and comments provided outside of my segment do not represent the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, and my participation in this event does not imply support or endorsement for any company or content presented throughout the summit. Plant Industry Division is the sole agency that provides plant regulatory oversight for the state of North Carolina. Among our other regulatory responsibilities, the Plant Protection Section enforces laws and regulations set forth in the Plant Protection and Conservation Act and Subchapter 48F of Title II of the North Carolina Administrative Code, which clearly specifies the state regulations for the collection and sale of ginseng. You can visit our website and just scroll down to the bottom to find the laws, regulations, and publications link if you would like to read them in full. The Plant Conservation Act also designates subject matter experts to serve on the Plant Conservation Scientific Committee, who are generally focused on conservation practices on our department-owned plant conservation preserves and include land management recommendations, habitat restoration initiatives, imperiled species evaluations, and other biological and ecological needs of the program. The scientific committee contributes to the evaluation and review of the state protected plant species list. The North Carolina Plant Conservation Program relies on data from the Natural Heritage Program to make decisions related to the adding, editing, or removing species from the state protected plant list. We are currently awaiting more data to most effectively evaluate ginseng decline in our state. Friends of Plant Conservation is a nonprofit organization that provides valuable support to our multifaceted plant conservation program. I was asked to provide data on the effects following the 2019 Memorandum of Understanding signed between the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission and the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services. I know this slide is very busy, and we only have 3 years of data to report, but the important information is highlighted in red. I would like to point out that the amount of roots confiscated in 2022 is probably low. There were several reports that did not have a quantity listed. So I do feel like that number is significantly above 1,000, but cannot state that for sure. Again, slide is very busy. Just focus on the red information. We are incredibly pleased with the outcome of this partnership to hold poachers accountable, and are continuing conversations with Wildlife Resource Commission for future improvements to this process. As I understand it, the point of this summit is to plan for the future. I'd like to highlight our perspective on the immediate needs and concerns of the North Carolina ginseng industry. At this time, Plant Industry Division believes that the North Carolina ginseng industry leaders do have the opportunity to work collectively to prevent the decline of ginseng populations without the implementation of additional regulations. I'm incredibly proud of the role our team plays in serving the ginseng industry and working with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to monitor the harvesting and export of this species. I may have left some questions you have unanswered, but you can feel free to email me and I'll be glad to provide any additional information related to the regulatory end of the ginseng industry in North Carolina. Thank you for your time today.
I had a conversation with Gary Kaufman about the new seed program of the National Forest Service of North Carolina. Gary recently helped analyze closing the Nantahala and Pisgah forests from any ginseng harvesting. This is a national trend, with 6 other national forests now banning ginseng harvesting. In the past, a harvester would apply for a digging permit, which was usually granted. Then a few years ago, a lottery system to allow a few harvesters each season to dig. Now it has become a total ban on all harvesting in our national forests in North Carolina. Gary mentioned that in 2010, a program to reseed American ginseng was started in the National Forest of North Carolina. Recently, the first batch was replanted. Government reseeding and planting programs is a good step to helping ginseng come back into our national and state forests. However, in my opinion, without a drastic revision instituting a harvest licensing program and changing the attitude towards poaching and export of this resource, the new reseeding program may just be allowing more illegal activity to continue.
Along the Appalachian Trail, searching for the Holy Grail. That's where I found the herb they call ginseng. Deep down in the woods, that's where I got the goods. The herb that turns the autumn into spring. Ginseng, ginseng, we got sing-along ginseng. Makes an older man cocksure, makes a younger man endure, makes an older woman younger, makes a younger woman hungry. Ginseng, ginseng, we got sing-along ginseng. To the hills of northeast China, I've been there and I'm going back again, searching for the truth, that fountain of youth, the herb the Chinese call Ren-Shen. Ginseng, ginseng, we got sing-along ginseng.